Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for the first of the month, June 1st. And what an interesting way to start the month. It did feel like this was, some beginning of month, buying that was happening, which is kind of interesting, right? You always hear the phrase, oh, well, there's cash on the sidelines. I've always heard this saying on Wall Street, and it's one of those things where I tend to ignore a bit because you do hear this from time to time. Oh, well, there's plenty of cash on the sidelines. It's one of those things that you will hear repetitively, but it's still doesn't really mean a lot, because there's always cash on the sidelines. For instance, right now I'm getting T-bills that are whoops, hold on a second here. I just messed up my spreadsheet. But you're getting 5% right now in or over 5% for T-bills, right? So risk-free. So yeah, of course there's going to be cash on the sidelines, and you kind of have to allocate your money, maybe outside of what you're doing trading wise, to earn some of that, and that's a gimme. So yeah, there's cash on the sidelines, but I think on days like this, where it's the first trading day of the month, because typically it is traditionally there's new money that's being put to work, like pension funds allocate money and so forth on the first of the month. They've just have done that. They also do that sometimes on the 15th of the month too. But I think when you look at the performance for the day, you just felt like there was a underlying bid all day, basically right until the last 15 minutes. And a lot of those guys, sometimes they cut their algos off at 3:45 too. But it just shows you that there is an appetite, even for as much as, the NASDAQ has advanced this year, which is now up 32% year to date. There's still a lot of money, and other things can be seen too in terms of, measuring that when you look at, the speculators and what their positioning is in the S&P, which we know is heavy short. So that was one of the themes of the day. So that's why I'm discussing it. It's just that you do sometimes see that first of the month flows, and I think that was somewhat responsible for the move. Where did we finish here in the VIX? I wrote this down. Sometimes my notes are from midday, because I do send out a midday note to members, a snapshot basically of everything that's going on. And yeah, I mean, look at the VIX, down 12% today, 15, right? Please don't go into the dark place of listening to somebody on Twitter that says that that the market is rigged, or that the VIX is broken. Those things couldn't be further from the truth, right? They just don't understand how the VIX works. I'm not really going to go into that in this video, but it's one of the themes of the day, right? The VIX, for example, measures short-term implied volatility in SPX options. That's all it measures, right? And don't read into, these people on Twitter sometimes will read into it because they believe it's the fear index. It's not the fear index. It doesn't capture any type of sentiment, or it doesn't capture anything of that nature. It's just pricing what 30-day options are in the SPX and the volatility there. That's all it's doing. And it's just telling you right now that there's not a lot of volatility that's being priced in the short term. That's all. Take it for what it is. Don't argue with it. Understand what it is and go from there. I didn't mention the risk disclaimer, but please go ahead and read the full risk disclaimer there. Everything that we're going through, of course, is for information purposes only. Today was also a strong breath day. Well, there's two ways that I kind of define that. And first of all, so you could see this on the bottom left of your screen. Sometimes I get questions about this. We have an indicator called the web breadth indicator, and we probably need to rename that. But basically what it does, and I sell this on the website for like really cheap. I basically, we basically give it away because it's not very, it's not that smart of an indicator, but that doesn't matter. It does its job. It tells you not just advancing versus declining, but it tells you the volume associated with the names that are advancing versus declining. And we separate it by exchange, so you can kind of see, because ARCA is a lot of time ETFs. NYSE is just that, names that have primary exchanges is NYSE, and same thing for the NASDAQ. And it gives you a sense of, again, not just advancing or declining, but if there's volume associated with that. So a lot of people will take that and look at it different ways, up versus down volume, right? I think there's like a Lowry indicator or something that talks about when you have like a 90% up day or something like that. We're not doing anything like that. We're just saying, hey, it was a strong breadth day. And I think that makes more sense versus like if you have an up day and it's on weak breadth, you know that there just wasn't a lot of conviction in the day's move. But I wanted to also slice it a different way, because I do find this interesting when we look at, let me blow this up a little bit so that you can see it. It should be, that should work, but this is again, this is percentage, 4-week new highs, 4-week new lows. Again, we're still have like a problem here in terms of the overall strength of the market, and that's not to say, I'm not drawing any conclusions saying that, oh my God, it's horrible that we just don't have a lot of areas that are participating. Like I said, today was a strong day, but you had 32 new week. This is just, 1 month highs, right? 4-week new highs, 32 names, and you had 84. This is just SPX, by the way, right? So you got a lot of names that are still, even though today you saw energy names come back, that was amongst the, just going to move this, the best groups for the day. OIH was up 5% for the day. Gold miners, right? So some other areas where XME was up 2.3%. Solar, banks were up today. So to me, that's different than what we've been seeing. But when you still look at those 4-week new highs and lows, they're only 32 versus 84. So again, it just kind of makes you, just to understand that this is not an all-around strong market. And also, when you look at 52-week new highs versus new lows, you only have 6, right? Apple, Oracle, Meta, Netflix, right? FICO's in there. And then you had 18 names that were making new lows. I see, a couple of the agriculture names in there have been really weak. Dish, which has not been a strong name historically. Target's in there. And then you have names like AbbVie and Amgen in there too. So, just interesting to see that, where the market is still, where the rotations are taking place, right? And what the hot areas of the market, right? So I thought that what would be nice too, because I get questions about this too. Like, I think, if you've been trading over the last month, that tech is hot, right? And a lot of it's overbought. We've been talking about that in the end of day videos. And by the way, I've got the S&P chart up. We're kind of hitting a little bit of that resistance again. That's why I have this trend line drawn. We do have new value areas for the month. We did start right at the top of value. So this was kind of iffy, from where we started today, right? We started inside value again. We have not taken out the week's highs, but we did get above value. So, there's a good, so number one, that's good for price to get back above the value area for the week, but we did not take out the week's highs, right? So we kind of stalled there once again. So there's some good and some bad in that. But, you look at how we kind of came into today, and, I was kind of thinking more defensively that, hey, we're not in the, we're not inside, or excuse me, we're not above the value area. We were inside value, which is kind of a no-no if we start the period above value. But so that was very good. And, one of the things too that I try to tell members too is that, you could think one thing, or you could think one thing is going to happen, but you have to be nimble, right? And you have to understand, because again, like I was saying, I was much more worried today. Even in my morning note, I was concerned that we really didn't advance too much. There was late day buying, right at the end of the day, or the last couple of hours, yesterday, and then we kind of stalled out a little bit, but we held where we needed to, right? So I went from from a more defensive stance, even though I had some long trades on, I was getting concerned, and hey, do I need to basically start playing, hedge a little bit to the downside, versus, but when we opened up and breadth went strong, then you've got to be quick on your feet with this market and not stay anchored, right, to what you thought was going to happen, right? We talk a lot about that, right, in the trading room, right? You can have ideas and things that you think are going to happen, but it's important that you read what the market is telling you, right? And again, I say this a bit too in these end of day videos, right? Don't argue with the market, right? Understand that today there was a lot of buying that was going on. So, and then look for opportunities, right? So I'm getting questions about, okay, well, we're getting overbought and it's a lot of the same areas. I would look for things, today was a good example, right? Look for things into support, right? ACLS was one of the trades that I put on today because I knew before I got into the trade, right? This is trade planning, that, hey, okay, this thing is pulling back a little bit. It's been a strong semiconductor and I've had my eye on it because I missed this move. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see if we get a little bit of a pullback, right? That's the whole thing, is to observe some of these super strong areas of the market, even like in NVIDIA, which I know everybody's talking about. And I'm not going to talk about NVIDIA because you could hear about it on any other financial media program, but it had a little bit of a dip the last 2 days, right? The question is, are buyers going to come back into the name? I will bring up the chart just so that you can see the 1 hour chart, but yes, buyers came back into the name. So that's what you want to watch for, because some of these names, if they're in high demand, like this name is, and some of the semiconductors and some of the other areas of the market, right, they're going to be pretty shallow dips, right? So I like when you see this, just a little bit of a dip off the highs, not that big of a deal. And this way I know where I'm going to get out of the trade if it doesn't work. 155 was my support. And let's see if I have this up from earlier. Right. So here is my trade, and this was right after the open, right? I gave this a shot and it actually went down a little bit. But it held my stop. So notice where I put my stop, 155. Why did I choose that? Right? Because that's where, giving it a little bit of tolerance if it slipped into the value area for the week, but that's it, right? And that's basically, I think is the right way to kind of participate in this market, is to find a couple names where you've got support, that you're planning out your trade, where the trade's going to work and where it's not going to work. Microsoft was something else that I traded today too. Notice it did kind of a similar thing, right? It got all the way up to 338. Shallow dip, 326, right? Came back up, and again, I know where it's going to work and where it's not. If it breaks into the value, if it stays, notice these candles, 1 hour candles, explored a little bit into the value area, but didn't close in there, right? So that's how you deal with it, right? And of course, then we can talk a little bit about, even some of the more higher momentum names, right? These things are flying all over the place, and you could use them for day trades. Because you can't be in every single one of these, but Carvana's it was up 22% today, right? And, the way to kind of handle these types of trades is that, you don't have to take the risk in the overnight market. These things are moving quite a bit in the regular trading hours. And, you can go long with one of these. And as soon as you go long, you set a trailing stop, right? And if the name starts giving back the gains, you get out of the trade. This is trading 101. But, so that was a question that, get about FOMO and about momentum and so forth. But, that's the way to do it. It's trading. There's no sure things, right? So you try a name, and, this is what happened to me. I think this group is very interesting, even though I'm going to point out this chart first, which is Bitcoin, right? And Ethereum. Now, these things they're not moving yet, which is why I'm kind of not crazy about these trades. But if you look at some of the moves that are happening in the crypto space, right? Like the CoinDesk, right? Well, CoinDesk kind of fizzled at the end of the day, still up 2%, and it's a name I'll be watching tomorrow. But, if you're in these trades, and depending on where you got into it for the day, if you have to keep ratcheting up that trailing stop, and then when it breaks, then you get out of it, right? Mara and Riot both look very similar, but you know, I try to trade in this towards the end of the day and thinking that this would be a swing trade because I really like the tight price action here. But I don't need to be in this stock, right? I don't need to be in a high momentum crypto name, especially when cryptos are not running right now. So if it were to close above its value area, which is right around $10, then I would have stayed in it. But you could see, right? I exited this trade, right? Exit 9.99. I paid 10.16, right? So that's it, right? I mean, you know, you have to, in my opinion, like if you're going to try, or I don't want to say that you have to try these things, but if you want to participate in the momentum, yeah, you have to come up with a game plan of how you're going to execute, and with the full understanding too that not every trade is going to work, right? You know, you give things a shot, but there's no guarantee that they're going to continue to see momentum, right? And that's what trading is all about, right? And if you're going to have losers, you keep the losers for really, you know, really small. All right, so that's a lot about what we did for the day. You know, we can begin to kind of look at some charts for the day because I think that there's a lot of, you know, even Boeing is looking interesting. Now, here's another good one too, which I started a trade in this one, right? And again, I preface, you know, starting a trade because this has been a really difficult name. There's no reason, in my opinion, to go big into this chart, right? Big into this name because it's had a lot of starts and stops. So number one, you're going to have to be patient with this thing if it doesn't go right from here. But I absolutely like the setup here, right? I like how all the moving averages are getting bunched up. It's above the value area to start the month. So sure, let's give it a shot. But I'm not going to go full size trade on this because I don't want to get myself frustrated in a chart that has been not easy. But we know that some of these names, right? If you do exercise patience, right? We've seen a whole bunch of areas go crazy, right? I know Broadcom reported after the close, but you know, forget about this move, right? That happened. But doesn't this look similar? Right, this sideways again. I'm trying to, for some reason, Thinkorswim's not cooperating with me. Let's try one more time. Let's see if I can do this right. So let me just cover up this before you could see that it went before. I don't think Thinkorswim is going to let me do it. But again, sideways. You got to be patient because Broadcom went sideways for like 3 months, right? Before it made its move. Now, I don't think Boeing's going to do this, like that parabolic type move, but maybe, you know, and again, like I also traded Lam Research, was a very similar type consolidation for multiple months. So yeah, the best way, in my opinion, to be patient, right, is to just not have that big of a position, right? And then once it does finally break, you could add to that starter position if you like, right? Your cost basis is still going to be in a good spot, right? It's something that you know, it takes a while to get that technique of saying, hey, I'm actually going to add once I get what I'm looking for, right? If you're in there while the name's consolidating. Tesla, how can I not talk about this one? Right, sent out a trade idea about this. You know, I was a little bit early. You know, I'm not complaining to be early, but it just seemed like it was the right name to play with all the AI stuff going on because they do a lot in that space, even though they're not, you know, they're not on the forefront of it. You know, in terms of the publicity and the attention, you know, of some of the names that are using like the Chat GPT and all that type of things. But this is a very good play, in my opinion, for that. And let's see if it can close above 205. Why 205? Because, you know, this is an area that we've been talking about, you know, for a couple months now, right? That it's got to get into the value area for this year, right? That becomes very significant. This value area is based on all the price and volume activity from 2022. And yes, it does become significant to not only get up to the bottom of value, but actually to break inside and get, you know, and get there. So I'm very pleased with how this is working. I'm long Tesla in a couple different places. I put it on in the TTG trend portfolio a couple weeks back, and so far this is working out pretty nicely. So again, big close for tomorrow. It's got to close above 205.30, and I think that we're in a good spot. if that happens. A name that I talked about yesterday, Celsius, right? This made the nice turn today. One hell of a turn. Now, if you're looking to get into like, if you missed this from my end of day video yesterday, is one of our setups going into this week, right? Again, you had to be patient here, patient, and then boom, it accelerated. Now I would watch 135.65. That's the top of value for the month, right? Depending on what you think, like the move could just be starting, right? In Celsius, but it's got to get above 135.65 for confirmation. A couple other names too to kind of go over, Carvana, I already mentioned, but I think that that's interesting because it got over its 200-day moving average. Look at this move. I did not trade this one. And my focus really hasn't been on this stock, but man, what a move, up 16%, right? And challenging those highs again. Name had a nice touch of the 200-day moving average, and went from there. Vive, right? Viva Systems, right? This will go on our strong earnings list. I already added to it. Huge day, up 19%, but this could basically just start to get going here, right? Look at what this name has been doing. It's just moving out of its, out of this base. So really nice. I think I could hit 203. I think that's a name to watch tomorrow too, right? At the very least, there's a VPOC up there, so it may stall out there, but I'll tell you, I don't think, sometimes people look at the stocks and they're like, oh, it's up 20%. I missed it. Right? You missed what? Because certainly getting the stock down here, that's not a good place from a technical standpoint, right? If you're looking for confirmation and how most traders trade, looking for that first confirmation that something is changing in the stock, it's just starting to break this range. So you haven't missed anything in it yet, right? You got to forget that, forget about that it was up 19%, because again, that doesn't matter. It matters where the stock is going. And it looks like it could be breaking out of its range. So I think that's very important, and an interesting name at that. A couple names, I mean, it's very interesting what's going on with some of these software names. Now, of course, Salesforce, a couple of the names that reported yesterday, they rebounded quite nicely, but they weren't up as much as some of these names are that reported after the close. MDB's up 20%, right? So it's almost like it has the feel of like, the show will go on, and some of these software and growth names, very impressive. Even Datadog is going to be one to watch. It's already up $5 in the after hours, but we'll watch it. TDD also gets a nice upgrade by Morgan Stanley too, but this Datadog has been putting in its consolidation. Where has it been consolidating? Right around the virgin point of control. So, now it looks like it might punch out from there. And again, just amazing to see these stocks up that much on pin action, basically, right? From action from another name. But, again, it continues to be the haves and the have-nots, because, Lulu is up nicely as well. It's up to 370. IoT is up nicely. I think IoT, there's a VPOC up here at 21.99 on the 1 hour. It almost hit there. It hit 21.90. So that'll be something interesting to watch. But it's not all names up, right? Look at what happened to Sentinel-1. That name's down 35%. Elastic is down 7%. Guidewire is down 5%. There was another name too that I saw. I think it was PagerDuty for some reason. Maybe it reversed, but I saw that down. Even Zscaler is down 1% too. So again, it's not every single name that is that's crushing it, right? There's going to be some winners and losers, and that's why we compile a earnings strength list. So that kind of helps us going forward too. What else? I have one more video to do at the end of the day. I'll be putting out my P&L for the month of May. I finished up about not just for the month, but year to date, I'm back up about 16%. So not flying. I wish I was up a little bit more, but than that. But I honestly, and well, I'll talk more about this in the video, but I didn't think that technology was going to get off to the start that it's had. So it's nice. I did not have a great April. And, I want to remind people too, if you have a bad month from time to time, right? Everybody's human, right? And I think I talked a little bit about this in yesterday's video too. It happens from time to time. So it's nice to get back on track, and I look to build from there, and I'll have more details about that. We're also doing on Monday a member webinar. It'll kind of work like a Twitter space, right? Where you can come on and we're going to talk about, what's working for people, what hasn't been working for, some best practices, so traders can kind of learn from that. So if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, make sure you sign up to be a member. If you're a new member, I'm happy to give you 50% off the first month. You just have to email me once you sign up, and we'll reimburse you for that. But that's it for tonight. Really nice trading day, and a nice way to start the month. Have a great night, everybody.